Welcome to Badger Talks Quick Picks, which brings exciting happenings, resources, and talent from your UW flagship campus to the people of Wisconsin and beyond, demonstrating the power of the Wisconsin idea, one connection at a time.
Hi, I'm Susan Carpenter, and I'm the Native Plant Garden Curator at the UW Arboretum. Today I'm going to talk about Wisconsin bumblebee conservation. So first I want to just touch on why are bumblebees important? Well, bumblebees are familiar to most people. They're large bees, and we've all probably seen a bumblebee before. They're also efficient and generalist pollinators, meaning that they visit and pollinate a really wide range of native plants and some of our food crops. So for the plants, the advantage of having bumblebees visit is that the plants are able to produce more fruit, bigger fruit, and more seeds. So this is obviously an advantage for plants. And for the bees are collecting pollen and nectar as they travel from flower to flower. And those materials, the pollen is used to feed their larvae, and the nectar generally is what the adults are using for their own nutrition. And some of our bumblebee species are in decline, hence the need for conservation. So this is a photo of the rusty-patched bumblebee, which is a bumblebee here in Wisconsin that is federally endangered. It's on the endangered species list. So I'm going to cover 4 ways to help bumblebees, and those are to create and connect habitat, to avoid pesticides, to photograph bees as a way to learn more about them, and to become an advocate. So creating and connecting habitat involves providing flowers for the entire flight season. So for our area of Wisconsin here in Madison, that would be from April until October. And here we see some examples of flowers in gardens or landscapes. The spring picture shows several species blooming. This would be at a time when the bumblebee queens have emerged from their hibernation, and they are trying to find enough resources, find the flowers, pollen and nectar, so that they can establish and start their colonies. So they're beginning to start their nesting process at that time. So it is crucial that they have flowers at that time. In the middle of the summer, the colonies have grown in size, and now there are more bumblebees foraging for the colony. The queen is still laying eggs, but the other workers are going out to forage the flowers and bringing back pollen and nectar to the colony, to the nest itself, and raising more bees as the colony increases in size. And then in the fall, or getting toward the end of the summer, we have yet another set of plants blooming, different plants at this time. And this is a crucial time because the future queens that will mate at this time of year and then hibernate are out mating and feeding enough so that they have a good store of energy to make it through the winter. And each colony only lasts for a year. So cycle has to it's very important that the cycle is not interrupted at any point, and that those new queens have a lot of resources to carry them through the winter. So we're providing flowers for the season, but when we are providing flowers, we want to be aware with our site. If it's a large scale, small scale area, we need to choose the right plants. So we want to think about the amount of sunlight, the soil type, and the moisture, and we have resources that will help us figure out what would be good plants to select given the situation in our own garden. I do recommend that we plant species that are native to the area where you live, and that is for the reasons that those plants and the native insects, the native bumblebees, have been evolving together for millennia. And those plant species are particularly resilient to factors like drought and excessive moisture and different temperature extremes that are present in your area. So those are very adaptable species. They usually don't need a lot of extra care like watering. So they are a good resource throughout the season. We also want to maximize the number and diversity of plants in the landscape or garden. By this, I mean just there's always room for one more native plant. And there's usually room for one more kind of native plant. So we really want to maximize those things because that will provide the most resilience, as I was just mentioning, and also give lots of different pollinators and different kinds of bumblebees resources that are particularly appealing to them. Here we can see a number of different flowers that are present throughout the season and different bumblebees using them. So there are some of the bees are long-tongued, some are short-tongued, and they can use flowers differently. So we also want to avoid pesticides, and this is quite important, especially the systemic insecticides. A systemic insecticide is an insecticide that is usually treated on the plants, on the soil, and the plant takes up these insecticides into its tissues. So it's in the stems, it's in the leaves, it's in the flowers, it's in the nectar, and it's in the pollen. So bees collecting those materials are going to be affected by those, and it's detrimental to the bees. It can affect their navigation, it can affect their behavior, it can affect how they care for the other bees within the colony, and it can affect the colony's success, reproductive success. So we want to make sure that the nursery plants that we purchase or use in our gardens have not been pre-treated. If you're growing your own plants from seed, you'll be able to do this easily. Otherwise, you can check with the nursery to make sure that those plants have not been treated with insecticide. And we monitor bumblebees with photography. Photography turns out to be a great way to learn about bumblebees, not just because we have the pictures, but because we can also answer many questions with the photos that we couldn't answer just by watching and observing. We like to take pictures of bumblebees in sequences. So a few illustrations here show a bee that was just moving around on this vervain flower or flowering stalk. And I managed to have a picture of the back of the bee, a side view, and a front view that shows the shape of the face of the bee, if you will. And then as you take a sequence of pictures of one individual, make sure that you have a spacer photo between that individual and the next one so that when you open your photos, you'll know who's who. And we use these color patterns to help us identify which bee it is. And we also have a picture of the flower. So one way to make this information that you're collecting with your photography more useful to a broader goal is to join the Bumblebee Brigade. And the Bumblebee Brigade is a participatory science project at the Wisconsin DNR. It's been in existence for about 6 years now. And many, many people, hundreds of people are submitting their photos. It allows us to ask questions like, where do bumblebees live in Wisconsin? There are 20 kinds of bumblebees in Wisconsin, and which ones live in which areas. And this will help us understand at the statewide level how to conserve habitat, how to monitor in certain areas, or how to find out if we just don't know about bees living in certain areas. This project can help us find that too. And also we can learn from the photographs, what is the timing of the life stages, like say in different parts of the state or with different floral resources. And we can also see from this map, which is mostly composed of sightings from people participating in Bumblebee Brigade or similar projects, that Wisconsin, this shows the remaining range of the rusty patched bumblebee here in the US. This bee has been restricted now in range. The reason it's endangered is it's been lost over most of its geographic range. The entire eastern portion of the country has very few sightings. But this is the Midwest stronghold where it's still living. And you can see that Wisconsin has a very important role in conservation of this species. And on a more personal level or more individual level, what else can we learn from doing the photography? Well, some interesting things that we can learn are about behavior. We can see that this rusty patched bumblebee here is nectar robbing on a bee balm flower. So it's poking its tongue into the flower tube at the bottom instead of moving down through the tube as most of the other bumblebee species would do. And we can also study the queens as they emerge from in the spring, as they go into overwintering in the fall, and as they search for nests. We can study them as we've got pictures of them around in their various habitats. And we can look at floral use because we mentioned that bumblebees are a generalist pollinator, but they are not all the same in terms of the flowers that they use. So some bees will use some types of flowers more than others, and these bumblebees are not all identical in their preference for different flowers. And we can also learn which species are living in our garden or site. So this photography project is how we learned that we at the Arboretum have 14 species of Wisconsin's 20 species of bumblebees documented here on our site. And then finally, it's important as you learn more about bumblebees and as you interact with the community about them, that you become an advocate for bumblebees in your community and even beyond. Your garden or your landscape may inspire your neighbors, your family, strangers. You can provide advice for people that you've learned from your process of studying bumblebees. You can maybe harvest and share seeds with folks that are interested in starting their own gardens, because most native plant gardens will have way more seeds than they always have some to spare and share. And then finally, you can support conservation organizations that are not only providing resources for us to learn more and to amplify our own efforts, but they're also promoting action and conservation more broadly in our state and beyond. And here are some resources at this link that will help provide some background for you, and I hope that they help you in your efforts to help conserve Wisconsin's bumblebees. Thank you.